It's a pleasure to have you once again on the link here at NTV. Thank you for always joining us. We hope we are keeping our promise to give you information that you can use and sometimes opportunities. Today we are still giving you information that is relevant. By now you must have heard that there were new tax proposals, and one of those I don't know what to say about it. We'll talk about it later. But we are going to talk about those tax proposals. You have already heard about them. We are going to add some flesh in terms of their implications. And in the studio, I have somebody qualified to tell us about that. Juliet Nagginda, Senior Tax Manager, PriceWaterHouseCoopers. Juliet, welcome.
Thank you, Sam.
I can say welcome again.
Yeah, that's true.
The new tax proposals. People are going to think we're going to talk about fuel first. We'll come to fuel later. Yeah. What are the wins? Surely everything is not terrible. What are the wins in the new tax proposals? They may not pass, by the way, but if they pass, what are the wins?
All right. Thank you, Sam. And there's a few wins, because not everything is doom and gloom. And this we've seen mainly from the side of VAT. There are some exemptions that have been given. There's some things like seedlings, pesticides, fertilizers. Some of those were previously zero rated. Cooking stoves made of certain material that are made in Uganda. Those are now being exempted from VAT, such that the people who are using those stoves, such fertilizers, do not have to worry about VAT. The other win, you could say, is for people who are manufacturing electric vehicles.
Oh, who plan? Because I don't know anyone who does that.
Well, there's Kira EV. So the people who are, although there's a threshold for excise duty, if you're to benefit from the exemption for excise duty, as a citizen, you have to invest at least $5 million. That may be on a high, but I guess, because of the kind of product we are dealing with, if you're manufacturing electric vehicles or those charging systems for the vehicles and the batteries that go into such vehicles, there's an exemption that has been given for excise duty as well as VAT. So those, you could say, are some of the wins that we are seeing.
I guess I look at it as a support for government's policy for the, what do they call it, the energy transition. Okay, and we've spoken to some border people, and they say one of the most expensive thing about the electrical borders is the batteries. So this makes sense. Okay, let's move on. Of course, it seems that most of the proposals are challenges to my cost of living. Let's start with that. Proposals that are going to make my cost of living even higher.
Yes, we've also seen a couple of those. I know you started by mentioning fuel. We'll
go to fuel next.
The other one that we've seen is around the people who use payment platforms like agency banking, FlexiPay. Those are some of the payment platforms that are popular currently. There's a proposal to introduce a 0.5% excise duty on withdrawals made through those platforms. So currently, if you're using such platforms, you find that the bank charges you a fee of, say, maybe $2,500. It's usually a flat fee across board, and there's excise duty that applies on that at 15%.
15% of the $2,500? Of
the $2,500, yes. But now the proposal is to also add an additional 0.5% on the value that you are withdrawing. So,
to illustrate, tell me if I'm on point here. If I'm withdrawing $1 million shillings, I am going to pay 0.5%, which is 5,000. Plus 2,500. And 15% of the 2,500.
That's correct. But the 2,500 is for the bank or the service provider. Then for government, they get the 15% of the 2,500 plus the 0.5%.
But I'm the one paying everything.
That's the disadvantage with tax like excise duty. Every time you see excise on anything that you use as a final consumer, you just know that it's you going to pay that tax.
Now, Julie, they're saying withdrawals. That means if I'm paying school fees, I'm okay.
Yes, if you're paying school fees, water bills, and all those things, you're okay. But as long as you go there to withdraw your money, then they'll charge you.
Now I was worried that they're making school fees even payment more expensive. I am a bit relieved.
Yeah.
All right. What other areas am I going to face cost of living going up?
So the others may be on certain products relating to cement. We look at things like grout, lime. They are introducing an excise duty at a rate of 500 shillings. We already had excise duty on cement, but now they are increasing it to 500 shillings. Yeah, and then the other thing that they are looking at taxing is really the things that are going to affect you and I. Is the fuel. that you have been hesitant.
But they have only done 1,100 shillings. I think that's not too much.
Well, on the petrol diesel, it's 100 shillings. But if you look at the trend, say from 2021, fuel has gone up. Between 2021 to around now, fuel has gone up by about 21% for petrol. Diesel maybe 19%. So here you may think that it's just 100 shillings. But normally what we have seen is that the compounding effect of that 100 shillings, you may find that the price goes up by another maybe 250 or 300 by the time the final consumer is paying for that excise duty. So I think fuel is very sensitive at this point in time for it to be increased. And for kerosene, they've increased by more than half because it was 200 shillings and now they are proposing a rate of 500 shillings, which is really on the high side.
It's interesting then. There are no other things to tax but fuel. Okay, that's an emotional as a consumer. Because yes, I remember fuel was 3,800 one time before COVID. Now it's at 5,000.
5,300.
And now they are coming with more tax. What's your take? What's government thinking when they do that now?
No, obviously there's a lot of pressure for revenue collection. And fuel always appears as a low-hanging fruit because, I mean, the economy runs on fuel. If each one of us is going to pay an extra 100 shillings, you can imagine how easy it is to, collect, as opposed to if they are to tax things like, the ones that we don't normally use. So fuel is a low-hanging fruit, and it's no wonder that they would want to tax it. But then we also know that if the fuel prices go up, it's usually a driver for inflation like we have seen in the recent past. So maybe this is not the right time to increase the tax on fuel right now because of the prices already
is unpredictable.
Yeah, the price is already fragile.
Rental. They are going to tax rent again. Why do they like these rent issues? What is the issue with rent and land?
So for rental and land issues, now that is under the category of income tax. And for this particular one, the proposal that we have now is that government is proposing to tax people who dispose of land that is in municipalities, cities, rental property at a rate of 5% on the gain that you make when you dispose of that property. So
before, if I sold land in those places, would I be tax-free?
You'd have like stamp duty. Yeah, there were a few. Mainly stamp duty. That's what most people pay. But
now I'm going to pay stamp duty. Plus what percentage?
Stamp duty then on the gain that you make
on the money disposal. That I earn.
Yes.
From the sale.
From the sale. No, they've put it as a gain so that then you can consider your cost versus the proceeds.
Julie, please clarify that issue. I thought it was the money I get. I heard the gains. How do I then? What does that mean actually? Gains.
Yes. Normally, if you're looking at a gain, you look at the proceeds that you've got out of that disposal vis-a-vis the cost that you acquired the property at. So that difference there would be the starting point in determining the rate of
That's very interesting.
The amount of tax that you have
the money I give to the brokers, all that is costs.
Yes. To the broker, yes, you can say.
The brokers say, selling the land 10% is mine. So that's the cost to me, and therefore it can't be taxed, correct?
Well, I think we'll need to get clarity on that, because usually when you look at cost at the cost under such arrangements, you're looking at the cost of acquisition. These are the costs that come in as you transact. Would need to the government to pronounce itself on whether those will be considered.
So what cost would they consider if I sell land, for instance? What might count from an auditor standpoint?
So what would count is, did you acquire that? Is that your land that you bought maybe from someone else? Say if you bought that land from me at 20 million and then you're disposing it off at 40 million, you've made a gain of 20 million. So 5% on that 20 million.
So we should be careful about the word gains.
Yes.
That's why it's important to bring experts like you.
Yeah, but there are few exclusions here for like residential property, or if you're disposing of your property under distress. Maybe you failed to pay off a loan and court is has forced you to sell off the goods or to auction them. There are some exclusions there, or divorce settlements, you don't pay the tax under such circumstances.
Finally, auctioneers.
Yeah, so the other one for auctioneers, that would be the people who usually auction items. Mainly you'd find the financial institutions, different companies. Last year we saw a proposal that was putting VAT on auctioned items. And the way the proposal was worded was that the person who was auctioning the goods had the mandate to account for VAT. But then we found that it could not be implemented, because as an auctioneer, I'm just a conduit. I don't own that property. So I cannot account for VAT. So now they've amended that to say that the VAT has to be accounted for by the person who actually receives the proceeds. So in the event that you are auctioning a property, and this is a transaction that should be subject to VAT, because there are cases where that property may be exempt from VAT. Maybe if you're dealing with financial institutions and things like that. So if VAT applies, then you'd have to account for VAT as the person who has received the proceeds.
Before we leave this there for Julie, if I'm selling land, that means I am going to pay VAT, and I am also going to pay income tax. Is that correct?
No,
because the auctioneers, selling through the auctioneers, the person who owns the property does the VAT, correct?
Yes.
And therefore, earlier on we say if you're selling rent on, again you are going to pay income tax. That's how I interpret it. No,
so for land is a bit tricky, because you know there are also exceptions to VAT on land. If you have like undeveloped land, then VAT does not rise. Yeah, but if you have like commercial property seated on land and you dispose of that property, there's going to be VAT on one hand, which is now under the value added tax system, but then also the gain on disposal. If you find that you fit the condition for the capital gain, you'd also have to look at the income tax side of things.
I'm going to bring you back here on that. I can see it is a very tricky area. We'll bring you back, Joy, so you break down that issue of land, because now I see under auctioneers and under rental and land, there seems to be issues to understand their viewers. Time doesn't allow us to continue with Julie, but I'll bring her back to tell us about the issue of selling land there, because most of you are selling land. I know many people are selling land, and you need to know this, and we are here to give you that information. We hope we added value to you. These tax laws are going to Parliament, so they may pass or not pass. But for now, we're discussing them as proposals. That was the link. Thank you for joining us tonight.